All right. Shalom, shalom. Welcome once again to the D.C.B channel. My name is Zurishaddai. I'm one of the teachers at Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, which is led by Chief Prince Yehudah ben Yissaschar. And here once again we have to highlight certain of the points of the last two Sidroth. One of my teachers, even Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah, as he's been joining us week by week, and reviewing and highlighting some of the points in the particular Sidroths that are from the previous week, and this is being 2 weeks because last week we didn't go over any of them, or we didn't go over where Canaan. So he's going to double up this week and go over where Canaan and Eiquev. So without any further ado, Nasik is all yours.
Eiquev. There's two impact. It's loaded with a lot of jewels, as most of the Torah itself. But in the 40th year, it seemed like Moses condensed 1 year, 40 years within this 1 year. One of the areas about when we into the book of Devarim, which in most people will say Deuteronomy, is that Devarim means words or matters. Now, you have another word in Hebrew, which is milah, which means a word, W-O-R-D, word. And Devarim has a lot more stronger impact, because now it's not just a word, but a matter. But when we talk about what is the meaning of a word, and the meaning I tend to share with people as a definition for what do the word means is I bring it out like this. A word is a vocalization of a thought. That means you're thinking something and you're expressing it verbally. That is my definition of a word, a vocalization of a thought. So when we talk about Devarim, as the book of Deuteronomy, and we think of words, we got to think of matters or thought process that's being pushed on through this whole segment of this particular fifth book of the CHOKMAH. And one of the things that's I find enlightening in this particular Sidra, Canaan, is that it starts off with, and Moses besought the Lord, and then it begins, and I besought the Lord at that time, saying, O Lord, thou hast begun to show thy servant thy greatness and thy strong hand. But what God is there in heaven or on earth that can do according to thy works and according to thy mighty acts? Let me go over, I pray thee, and see the good land that is beyond the Jordan, that goodly hill country, and Lebanon. Now, when we look at Moshe, and he besought, and he used the term grace, like I said before, like many other people say, he didn't use his resume and said, I did this before you, I did that in the past. But what is interesting, and what some commentaries might look at from the word itself, since we have Roman numerals, there's a form in Hebrew called gematria, We deal with numbers. And when we break down the letters of the word Wa'akanan and give it its numerical value, then we come up with 515. And most some rabbinic commentaries, and other people that deal with gematria would say Moses pleaded 515 times to try to get the Creator to change his mind and say yes. I used to tell a story from time to time about a little girl that had a doll, and she was playing with her doll, and the arm broke off. And when the arm broke off, she tried to put it back together, but it wouldn't seem to work. So she said, "I'm gonna pray to the Creator." So a big sister said that the Creator don't answer prayers like that. So since the Creator don't answer prayers like that, why would you pray to the Creator for him to put on a wooden doll's arm? So she said, "Yes, he will answer my prayer." So she prayed. When she was getting ready to go to bed, she prayed hard that night before she went into bed. And then she woke up in the morning. And when she woke up in the morning, she ran to check up on the doll and see if it was put back together. And her sister came with her, said, "See, I told you, the arm is not on. The Creator don't answer prayers like that." The little girl said, "Yes, he did." He said, "No." Some people cannot take a no answer. And Moshe wasn't satisfied with taking a no answer. Now we know that Moshe's resume was he was the meekest man in the whole earth. So why is a man that meek on the whole earth couldn't take the no answer? Why did he want to go into the land? Did he think he was better than anybody else? No. I doubt that Moshe, from his resume and from what the Creator testified about him, saying he's the meekest man on the whole earth. So it wasn't going into the land to be egotistic. It was being able to go into the land to perform those laws that he taught the nation of Israel that they only knew by theory but couldn't apply in the wilderness. And so his wanting and yearning to go to the land is not so much that I ain't die on this side, I was able to make it, I was able to accomplish the mission, I was able to reach the land of promise. What his desire, ultimate desire would be in going into the land would be to be able to see and perform those laws, statutes, and judgments that can only be applied within the land. So hence, we have understanding why Moshe will plead so hard, where the Creator told him not to even speak of it again. But at the same time, he's telling the generation that was 40 years in the wilderness. All the men that was 20 and upward had died. So
Right.
the oldest anybody else was 19.
Right.
If there wasn't a Levite and there wasn't a woman, the oldest age and anybody else at the time when that decree came was 19.
Right.
And so now in this particular thing here, this particular period of time, all the men of war had died out. They already took the second census. They're about ready to cross over into the land. And yet Moshe still say, "I want to go into the land." And he was supposed to fight avenge the Creator on the Midianites and then die. So I let you know that he did his job, and he's seen that the Creator was doing wonderful things. One of the things that he's seen his brother's position passed on to his son. All right, and he's seen the tribe of Levi got their portion. So now, where will his portion go to? And those that studied scripture earlier will realize that he didn't think his closest minister, Yehoshua, was qualified to fill his footsteps. When the Creator had remind him that there's another spirit on Yehoshua. So now here we come to this point now at this particular time in this particular Sidroth, where though he prayed and the Creator denied him and said, no, don't speak of it again. What's ironic is that he prayed for so many people, millions of people, but not one individual thought enough to say, all right, since you prayed for us, we gave you such a hard time. We really appreciate what you did. And the Creator told you not to ask. Perhaps we can ask. But that didn't even come up, which is one of the things that you wonder about. You say, well, why would not one person even say if Moses was told not to ask, and he's telling us that nobody asked, are we allowed to pray on your behalf? When sometimes we know that people could pray on other people's behalf because Moshe prayed on the nation's behalf. Aaron even told him to even heal his sister when she was out of order. So, and hence you had the shortest prayer and record when he told the Creator to heal her now. So now we move on just a little bit. What's interesting also in this particular portion, you have Moshe set up the 3 cities of refuge prior to them going in the land. And that's for a manslayer. I heard different teachers say different things about the city of refuge, that if a manslayer went there, we know the law that he goes there, if he killed his neighbor unaware, scenario is if he's chopping down a tree, the axe fly off, strike his neighbor, and he dies. He don't go ahead and say, look, let me see if I can litigate this thing now. He flees to the city of refuge. And then from there, they will hear his case. So now, some people think, all right, once he come out and they found out that he didn't hate his neighbors in time past, then he goes back to the city of refuge and stay there until the high priest died. That's not really good for the high priest in a sense, but that's another story where people might want you to die sooner for them to leave. Now, it could be cases where an individual brother might be from Dan, and he might have been way down in Benjamin's territory, helping different brothers out, whatever they was doing, and that tragedy occurred. So now he don't flee way back on the other side, to a far city close by his tribe. He goes to the nearest city of refuge, and the nearest one would be near the territory where the crime happened. So the Redeemer of blood, the Avenger of blood, as they say, the Avenger of blood, if he catch him before he gets to the city of refuge, he has the right to slay him. Now, people will say, well, is that really godly? And that brings up another story. But I'm not going to focus on a lot of details, but I want to bring out this point of clarity in dealing with that. Is that once the guy go into the city of refuge, after he flee, and they bring him out before a trial, and they find out that he didn't hate his neighbor in time past, and he got to stay there till the high priest died. If he leaves, the Avenger of blood could slay him once he leaves before the high priest died. Now, you have some scenarios where some people might think, maybe I miss my family. I've been here long enough. I'm gonna go out the city of refuge because I can protect myself. If you come at me, I'm gonna defend myself, and I could kill the Avenger of blood because I'm maybe 9 foot tall, whatever the case is, and about 2.5 foot wide or 3 feet wide. So the thing is that if you leave, and that's what I want to bring out, because some people think a man may not stay there to the high priest died, especially if he started being high priest at a young age, and he living well and living holy. He might decide to go out on his own, saying, I can handle myself, I can protect myself. Then, if he was able, and that's what I'm going to bring out, if he was able to beat the Avenger of Blood and slay the Avenger of Blood, he would be held liable for murder.
Right. Murder charge.
Simply because he violated a judgment. The judgment was you stay here
Right.
until the high priest die.
Right. Right. Correct.
But if you come out, I don't care if you could whip everybody in that family.
Correct.
If you came out prior to that, it's premeditated murder.
Right.
Because
you
now
follow the
you,
laws.
because you violated a law already, and you went out simply because you said I can handle whatever's coming after me. So therefore, it become a premeditated murder, and you will be
held liable.
held accountable.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure that people have that understanding, because some people think, oh, I can whip the whole family. I ain't got to worry about that. I ain't staying that long. I don't even live over this way. I want to go home. And that's why, and you're still called a murderer. In some books, it translates in English as a manslayer, but in Hebrew, you're still a murderer. So I just want to make that point clear that, because I've been hearing different, scenarios in reference to that. Also, we know that those 3 cities was put on that side. Moses chose them himself. Like I know going to be a lot of problems over there for them 3 tribes, and they was actually a frontier tribe. Then we have in the area the covenant between God and Israel that's reiterated, the 10 words, and the 10 matters, and we have that in the book of Equanon. And then what we also have in the book of Equanon is the lesson about excuse me.
And the portion where Canaan in the book of Deuteronomy.
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. For when I said Equanon, most of the most of the Israelite brothers would know, of people that follow the Sidroth would know. Right. Me within that whole segment, because we know chapters and stuff was started much later.
Okay.
So we had the lesson about Exodus, why we had to go through the Exodus, and what the lesson of the Exodus is supposed to teach us. When we go even further, then we get into the Kriyat Shema, which people say that the reciting or the reciting or the reading of the Shema, the Hero Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Now, what is so strange is that this is brought out 40 years later. We didn't have them telling us Hero Israel then, but when we get a glimpse of hearing, O Israel, it's like when y'all go in the 49th chapter of the Genesis, when you get ready to call his sons and let them know what's going to happen in the latter days. He brings out the point about, hear me, you sons of Jacob, and gather unto me, sons of Israel. Paraphrasing, not exact quote, but paraphrasing just a bit in that area. And so when we look at that why hearing, and that leads me into the next Sidroth, which is Eiquev. All right, but I want to before I go into that, I want to bring out some points in this particular Sidroth. All right, we got laws. If we look in Deuteronomy, we say Deuteronomy 4:2. We just look at that verse there, 4:2. I'm gonna run through this here. It said, "You shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you." All right, so a lot of times when people say we're not supposed to add or diminish, all right, it means in the sense of what is written is what is written. How we explain it is not always how it's written.
Okay.
So a lot of times we have stuff written out in the book. We all got the book before us. It's all written out. But now, if I got to give you the sense of the law, then I'm going beyond what is written there. But adding means I add to make an amendment to the law, or I subtract to delete a certain aspect of the law. But if you teach, you're going to always, just like you give a definition of a word, going to explain more than what the word actually is. So when people say shouldn't add or detract in context to what is written in law, how we explain it, then that's where we get all these different commentaries, maybe debates over how this law or how this pursuit should be read and understood. But we all agree what is written is what is written. All right. Another thing I'd like to bring out is that in this particular Sidroth, where Equinon, you actually commanded to love the Creator.
Right.
Now, how love is something that is either there or it's not there. So how you can command somebody to have a particular emotion and it be genuine? And that's one of the things that you have a Creator that through the prophet Moses, he's telling you it's a command for you to love the Creator. And you say, oh, my emotion is what it is. I mean, I respect him. I know I have feelings for him, but love, I'm not even sure if I really love myself. So how could I express that love? Well, one of the avenues is explained when we read the pursuit a little careful, a little further into the Sidroth, that is by every command that we look at and we want to apply and want to try to fit and exert to the best of our ability. We're doing that to please the all highest. So we were told also to stand in awe of them. Fear is one thing. So when we're talking about when books translate as being in fear, it don't mean to be afraid. It means yirah. It means stand in awe or reverence. It's just like if you went before a dignitary and come to their house, you watch your mannerism if you're sitting at the table. You watch how you eat. You watch where your elbows at. How you slurp your food. All that you be on your guard. So that's what when they talk about fear and they talk about which is really a bad translation, is standing in awe or reverence of the Creator. And so he's told two things: have that profound reverent respect for the Creator, and love, which is a straight out emotion that only it has to be developed. So that means the more law you learn, the more you do, then you're constantly developing. Also, in this particular Sidroth with the Shema, you're commanded to teach. And one of the things about teaching, where I'm from BINAH Zakim, it's always been a saying that we raise leaders, we produce leaders and teachers. That's what the BINAH Zakim saying. We make leaders and teachers. So everybody ain't gonna be a leader. They will not be a leader. But everybody is obligated by the Creator to be a teacher. Your first student is your household, your children. That's your first student. So you can command it, and then you're not just supposed to passe teach. It says diligently teach. That means that you have to put that all in. Like you're feeding them with gold, you got to put it all in order to teach this, your child. So everybody may not be a leader, but everybody at the minimum
It's a teacher.
It's got to be a teacher. And that's for everybody, whether you're chief, prince, layman, you know, wherever, male or female, you must teach. And you must start with your children. And they tell you what time it is you teach them. You teach in every aspect of life. You know, and they give you positions, you know, sitting, you know, walking, you know, lying down, rising up. You say, well, lying down, how can you learn lying down? Where you go to bed? You got some things to say. Got some things to teach you. When you wake up in the morning, you know, what's the first thing you need to acknowledge and know? So you constantly teach them, you know, I mean, all the time. And that's part of Torah.
Right.
Also, in this, I like to look at the 6th chapter, the 11th verse, and we're Econom right quick.
6th chapter and 11th verse.
Yes.
Chapter 6, verse 11. It reads, you ready, Nasik?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. That would be faster.
And houses full of all good things, which thou didst not fill, and cisterns hewn out, which thou didst not hew, vineyards and olive trees, which thou didst not plant, and thou shalt eat and be satisfied. Then beware lest thou forget Yehudah, who brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
All right there. All right, that's okay. Now, my question, and what should be most people's question is, you know, when we get to the part of eat and be satisfied. See, now suppose, you know, let me just flip just a little bit back. All right. It said, which I did plant, and thou shalt eat and be satisfied. Then beware lest you forget the Lord. All right. Now, suppose I eat and don't be satisfied. Is it okay for me to forget God? And then,
absolutely not.
And what is it to be satisfied? That should be what we think about. What is to be satisfied? Oh, well, I didn't have enough of this. I didn't have enough of that. I really didn't like this. I really didn't like that. We know they didn't like them. They talk negative against the manna.
Right.
But the thing is that if you ate enough to taste something, to distinguish what the taste is, then, you know, I mean, you're satisfied because you can identify what you just ate.
Right.
You know, it don't mean that you ate till you can't eat anymore, because the people that asked for meat in the wilderness, and they gave them quail, where they ate, you know, had to pick up for over a month, and you know, and it was coming out their mouths, and they slew the fattest amongst them. That means they wasn't satisfied with a full stomach. So we got to understand what does it mean by being satisfied, and hence also this is where you get the premise of grace after meals. What they call Birakat Hamazon, you know, in most circles, and that's grace after meals in the sense that blessing. It really means the blessing. You know what I mean. You know, for the food. And the thing is that why after? Because it's easy to say you appreciate something when it's being handed to you, but couldn't you appreciate it when it's no longer before you? So therefore, you're never told before you ate that you had to say a bracha. That's a rabbinic thing. But scripturally, from Tanakh, you're told to be aware after you ate. So therefore, as a lot of times, it's also different sayings that if the cattle upon 1,000 hills is the creator, and if we ate something that belonged to somebody and don't even acknowledge them for it, it's almost like if we stole from them. So the thing is that's why it's more important that after we finish a meal to say, you know what I mean, even in the morning, torah, you know what I mean, Sidroth, you know, for the Mazon, you know what I mean, then at least you did that.
Right.
But most of us say the blessing before, and we very conscious on it, but very few of us we remember in our everyday life. Because in the everyday life, almost everybody say the bracha before they eat.
Right.
But almost in everyday life, very few people say the bracha after they eat.
Good point.
Was you satisfied or not satisfied? That's the question.
Excellent point.
You know, so that's why and collectively they mostly focus on, the grace after meal, because now you're really making a conscious choice of who is actually the giver in
Right.
in this instance. All right, and then I'd like to go just skip on over here to 7, I think 7 in this and in the same situation. Just highlight some points here.
7:7.
Yes.
Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 7. Hallelujah. And Yehudah did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because you were more in number than any people, for you were the fewest of all peoples. But because Yehudah loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he swore unto your fathers, have Yehudah brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondage, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
Okay, all right there. That's good enough. All right, so the Creator, you know what I mean, took the least of all nations and endowed that nation, which is us, with the greatest opportunity of nobility that could ever exist on the planet. Because had we said we've been powerful enough, big enough, strong enough, then we might have automatically figured, hey, we get what we want to do. We do what we want to do. You know, almost like before the flood. You know, mighty man in the earth.
Right.
You know, Bene Elohim.
Right.
Taking I mean, wind up taking the daughters of men, all who they chosen. You know, that's a vile act. You know, where they figure might make right. But we was the least of all people in number and intellect and strength, you name it. Everybody around the world had more than that with us. All right.
Right.
So now, as we move further on, we think I'm gonna wait till I get to the next portion. Yeah. We so much for that. We're going to Eiquev a little bit now. We're focused on Eiquev. I like to look at the beginning of Eiquev, which started as 7:12.
7:12.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Oh yeah.
We're in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 12. And it shall come to pass, because ye hearken to these ordinances, and keep and do them, that Yehudah thy God shall keep with thee the covenant and the mercy which he swore unto thy fathers.
Okay, all right. That's good enough. That's good enough. Now, what I like to focus on in this particular, and this is very unusual in this particular book, is that Eiquev itself literally means a hill. And you could take that word completely out, and it doesn't change the meaning of the verse. You know, I mean, in essence, but it's there to teach you another unique lesson. Because it's translated as because, sometimes if, but Eiquev is actually an heel, the heel of a foot. That's what it literally is. And when we focus on that and say, well, okay, why it is used in this verse, we don't see how it relates to the verse. And it's one of the few things in the Hebrew when it starts off in saying, you know, YAH Eiquev, Tishu Ur, and Hamishpatim. So now, you know, YAH is also a unique word that comes before it. In most books, you will find a little line between it, that the hesitation where is a block right before Eiquev. All right, now when we look at those that will look at the word, you know, YAH. YAH is a verb to be in Hebrew. The third person singular is Hayah, which means was. It have in biblical Hebrew what they call a conversive YAH. A conversive YAH, or some say a conversive vav, is when you have a past tense verb becomes a future tense verb, and a future tense verb is spoken of in the past tense. You only find that style in the Tanakh. But what's unique about that, those that might for those that might be familiar with the language itself, is that it's spelled with a waw, hey, yod, hey. What's really unique, more so, those are the same letters in the tetragrammaton, which is the name of the four letters, which is the yod, hey, waw, hey, which is Yehovah, as we would say.
Right.
You know, so that's actually would be his name. You know, with those same letters, that was, and it was, you know, it was, or it will be, and it will be. Now, Eiquev, we said if it's part of the body, why use that, and why does it use that? Because first time you'll find that term uses actually with Abraham. Without me, I'm trying to speed up a little bit before I focus on what I'm really share on this particular Sidroth. When he walked and seen of the distance where they offer up Yishka. That's when you find out where Eiquev used there. And of course, Eiquev is part of Yaakov's name, the hill. And that's because when he came out, when he was born, he caught a hold of Esau's heel. So, but the heel, what makes the heel so unique is because that's part of the foot that's most neglected. And yet it supports the whole entire body. So now, what they say and what they try to conjecturalize from this particular verse, and the verse is talking about, and I'll go over it again, and it shall come to pass, because that's the word for Eiquev. Of course, that's how it's using it here in English. You shall hearken to these ordinances and keep and do them, that the Lord thy God shall keep with thee the covenant and the mercy which he swore unto their fathers. Now, some people would say, all right, they got some laws that are major, and you got some laws that some people consider minor. So I will give you an example of something of how people would say think some laws is major and some laws is minor, like a big sin and a little sin. And we don't find nowhere in the Tanakh where it's a such thing as, you mean, you might say a person did a great sin, but it's not because that violation was more deviant, more deadly than any other violation. You have certain penalties within certain violations where you could come back from.
Right.
But the thing is that when the law comes from the Creator, then all his law has equal weight. Right? So it's not where some people would think, oh, I can overlook that because that's not important. I mean, they ain't got that much of a penalty. We don't got that much of a penalty on the surface, but what do it lead to? We don't know what's the depth of it. We got laws like honor their father and their mother, that days be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. But then we also have a law, if you chance to find a dam sitting on her nest, on her young, by the way, you should shoo the dam away, make her flee away from the nest, and take the young and lead the dam, so that that days can be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee.
Right.
Same reward. two different laws, but the same exact reward. Honor father and mother. And you see a dam sitting on her nest. And you say, well, okay, why the equal reward? It's easier to say, okay, I can deserve that one than it is to honor your father or your mother. That's the easy one. But they have equal weight and value. So there's no such thing as, okay, I'm only gonna do easy laws, and I ain't gonna do the hard laws, or I'm just gonna do hard laws, and that should cover for me for not worrying about these easy laws. All the laws, statutes, and judgments in the Tanakh is of equal value. And one of the things that I like to bring out too, and most people fail to realize, is that it says you got to, make make the dam flee. Why? Because you bigger, you bolder, you stronger, but a mother's instinct will risk her life for her young. If she didn't have young on the nest, you wouldn't have to worry about her taking off when danger comes.
Right.
But because the young is on the nest, then that bird, you must make it flee the nest, because it's gonna stay there and try to do the best it can, being outnumbered.
That's right.
Being overweight. They're gonna do the best it can to defend its young. So that's what most people fail to realize, that the defense posture of even a mother in that situation and a concern for the young has the same value. So they don't have to.
Can I say something about that, Nasik?
Yes.
It's funny that you say that, because I see it almost every day. Squirrels sometimes get in the nest, and I don't know if they rattle it or whatever, but I see a lot of birds pecking squirrels, a lot of mama birds pecking squirrels from the top, because they always, I don't know if the squirrels, sometimes they ruffle nests, they go through nests, or I don't know if they eat the eggs. I'm not sure what the squirrels do, but I always see a lot of little sparrows and stuff attacking squirrels. Just an observation.
Well, actually, squirrels, most people don't realize that, because you just see them in the park with the nuts and right. And maybe some popcorn or something. You give them something right. like that there. But they don't realize that squirrels will eat meat. They cannibalize the young, right. and they will eat meat, especially in the wintertime.
Right.
So though they look nice and cuddly, right. they still could be they still are omnivores. They eat anything. So the birds know that.
Thank you for that insight. Right.
Right. All right. We're gonna go just go a little bit more into that. Okay. Now, one of the things is I was highlighting this. We're gonna go in to eighth chapter of this particular Sidroth. Okay.
Chapter 8, Deuteronomy chapter 8, starting from verse 1.
Yes. No. 2 to 3. That's 2 to 3.
Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 2 and 3. Hallelujah. And thou shalt remember all the way which Yehudah thy God have led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might afflict thee, to prove thee, to know what was in thy heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. And he afflicted thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread alone, but by everything that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yehudah doth man live.
Okay, now I'd like to bring out the point here. All right. One of the things is that Moshe is a living testimony.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right. Because he was up on the mount 40 days and 40 nights. Didn't eat bread or drink waters. What you find in this particular Sidroth that we might not cover most of it in this particular Sidroth this time. I might hint on it later on at another time. But in actuality, Moshe did that 40-day and 40-night fast 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So just in case I don't get a chance to focus on it, tonight, I will give you an idea being keeping too long. One, when he first went up there, after the children of Israel didn't want to hear the Creator speaking. All right, that's when he went up there. And he was up there 40 days, 40 nights, got the first set of tablets. Then he come back down, and they had a golden calf. So he broke those tablets. He goes back up 40 days and 40 nights to pray for the people, pray for Aharon. And the Creator was ready to kill Aharon. All that comes out in this particular Sidroth. Between 9 and 10 chapter. And then we might skim over it a little bit. But I'm just going to try to fast forward. And then he comes back down and get another set of tablets that he had to carve out and bring it back up. What's interesting, which comes near the end, just in case I don't bring it out all the way down, and just in case I might forget anyway, is that if you calculate, give or take, from the time of Shavuot, which pretty much we know comes in the month of the third month, Sivan, or Sivan as some people might pronounce it, all the way to Yom Kippur. You got basically give or take a day, 120 days for those 3 times up and down that mountain. And we also know exactly how long it took to build the tabernacle. From that point on, you're just using that scale and measurement. But that's not what I'm mainly going to focus on today. I want to focus on the part where it says the wisdom and knowledge and understanding. Let me see. Did I pass it? I went too far. In actuality, I need to find that verse. Just 1 second, a moment. Eagle. Okay. That's the eagle. All right. Anyway, so let's go down to 8:7, at 7th verse in the same chapter. Verse. Let's go do it this way.
Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 7.
Right.
And it reads, For Yehudah thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths, springing forth in valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness. Thou shalt not lack anything in it, a land whose stones are iron, and not of whose hills thou mayest dig brass. And thou shalt eat and be satisfied, and bless Yehudah thy God for the good land which he hath given thee.
All right, stop right there. That'll be redundant. Beware lest you forget. Always say beware again, lest you forget. You notice now, when it describes the land, I use the term land 7 times within the verses that Chief Uziel just read, and it describes the 7 main products of the land. We're talking about barley, wheat, pomegranates, figs, grapes, olives, and a date, dates, honey dates. Those, and then you notice it didn't talk about gold, it talked about brass and stuff like that. So what it's saying is that you have everything on that land that's sufficient for your needs. But what's even more unique that we might not pay attention to, since the word land is mentioned 7 times, don't you know it's actually 6 climate zones around this hemisphere? When you get a chance, Google it up. It's actually 6 climate zones. And that's what the world has. And Israel has a unique climate zone because they got a combination of all 6. That's why it's good land by itself. But the first 6, if you look, and most people don't realize there's actually 6 climate zones throughout the planet. And say, within that land of Israel, you have it all. So that makes it unique. So it's not just a spiritual area, essence, but it got the world You know, it's like a center of the world where everything would meet at in the land of Israel. And that's the real wealth. Let's talk about there. Let's go. Let's skip on down to the 9th chapter, the 4th verse.
We're going to the 9th chapter of Deuteronomy, verse 4. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Speak not thou in thy heart, after Yehudah thy God hath thrust them out from before thee, saying, for my righteousness Yehudah hath brought me in to possess this land. Whereas for the wickedness of these nations Yehudah doth drive them out from before thee. Not for thy righteousness or for thy uprightness of thy heart doth thou go in to possess their land, but for the wickedness of these nations Yehudah thy God doth drive them out from before thee, and that he may establish the word which Yehudah swore unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov. Know therefore, it is not for thy righteousness that Yehudah thy God giveth thee this good land to possess it, for thou art a stiff-necked people.
Okay. Now, one of the areas is acknowledging that those people were so wicked that the Creator said, look here, you got to go. And we're not that righteous that we could say we need to move in. So the Creator put it right there in front of us and let us know that it's not you and what you had achieved that's getting you in, but it's because they were so vile. And in this particular situation, they call it their land, that those people had, was taken out of their land. Before it's called our land, it was called their land in this book. So, I just want to bring out some episodes of that, and then I'm just going to move up just a little bit more. Let's go to 9:25. Well, 9:18. Read a little bit from there.
Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 18. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And I fell down before Yehudah, as at the first 40 days and 40 nights. I did neither eat bread nor drink water, because of all your sin which ye sinned, and doing that which was evil in the sight of Yehudah to provoke him. For I was in dread of the anger and hot displeasure, wherewith Yehudah was wroth against you to destroy you. But Yehudah hearkened unto me that time also. Moreover, Yehudah was very angry with Aaron to have destroyed him, and I pray for Aaron also the same time.
Okay, right there. All right. Now he's going over some of the things that we did, but what was unique is that Moshe had to pay for his brother, because the Creator was going to really take him out. Now, Aaron never worshiped the calf. Aaron never said the calf was his God. But yet he's responsible because him and her was left in charge of the camp when they left. And the Creator holds them responsible. So a lot of times when you give people misinformation as a teacher, leader, and lead them down a negative path, you be held more accountable. Because it's bad enough if you go down the wrong path. It's bad enough when you sin. But when you make somebody else sin. And what was so ironic is that you make them sin worse than your actual actions. So you can understand why the Creator was so hot with Aharon, because he was into it, but he helped facilitate it, and he really wasn't about that. And so imagine the first high priest almost wasn't a high priest of the nation of Israel, simply because of that. But a couple more things I'm gonna move on to in this year, and then I'm back up just a notch. Let's go to the 10th chapter. Let's read from 12 to 14. Let's see what's happening. Yeah.
chapter 10 of Deuteronomy, verse 12 to 14. It reads, And now, Yisrael, what doth Yehudah thy God require of thee, but to fear Yehudah thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve Yehudah thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, to keep for thy goodness.
That's good enough. That's good enough right there.
All right.
All right. One of the things is that we can't say we don't understand what the Creator require. So hence, Moshe let us know clearly what the Creator required. So, and like I said before, Moshe said, I set before you. And he took upon himself to say, I set before you. You know, life and death, a blessing and a curse. Choose life. But the Creator don't give you the option to choose. He give you free will if you want to choose. But he designate what he wants, what his real will is. He made his will known to us. That's why we read in that psalm that his judgment, his testimony he did, and statutes he gave to Yaakov. That we understood that. Mm-hmm. So those important points that we got to remember. Let's skip on in 19th verse.
Verse 19, Love ye therefore the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Okay. Now, that's another command for you of an emotion, to love the stranger. But the difference between that command and when it's commanding you to love the Creator is that we can identify with being strangers, but we can never identify as being a God. So since we could identify as being a stranger, then naturally, we should have some kind of sympathy for outcasts. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things now I'd like to focus on one of the things from Eiquev. And one of the things is that, and when we, the combination of those chapters, and we're Ekanon and Eiquev, one of the things to talk about, ask from one end of the world to another, to have any nation have such great laws, statutes, judgments as these, and other nations, when they hear of such laws, statutes, and judgments as these, they would surely say, this is a wise and understanding people. Most presidents of this country here, from Washington on up, to the last one, Obama and everybody, always talk about those things about laws, statutes, and judgments. About the rights that the right about a liberty is not given by man, but it's the right given by the Creator. John Adams, for those that might be listening to this, might want to look at the second president's speech, and he said that to the Hebrews, we owe, all civilization owe a great deal of debt, because what it is when we get ready to go into the land, about we had to have laws, statutes, and judgments. We don't go to a spot and then say we're gonna come up with rules and regulations. Mm-hmm. You got to have the rules and regulations before you get to the spot. Right. But most of us go to the spot and they say, okay, we're here now. Let's come up. What we're gonna do? Right. The Creator had the plan, and what's so unique about that is that when it says all the people that hear of such judgment, judgment such as these. Let's paraphrase it. Those it's in the book. Y'all can look it over. I'm just trying to speed it up somewhat for y'all. That Israelites may not recognize the greatness of the law, statute, and judgments that they are given and entrusted to them. Mm. Other nations will recognize that. And that's what Moses told the people, that when they see such, they're going to say, surely this is a wise and understanding people that have such laws and judgments such as these. So they're saying, we don't know nothing about your God. We don't know anything about serving this God. But we understand what human dignity and decency is all about. Right. And it's a sad revelation that some Israelites don't recognize the greatness of this law that the Creator gave us. Right. That's why we all dispersed throughout the four corners of the earth. But other nations, every civilization, the beginning of a civilization, of ancient civilizations, most of them get their power by strong armies. They work together. They conquer. And after they conquer, then what they do, after they start conquering everything like that, then they sit back and try to relax with the spoils of their conquer. And that's where every great empire gets to that area, pretty much. They get an army, they beat up some people, they move on, beat up some more people, move on, until finally they reach a limit where they're beating up enough people. They sit and start to relax and grow fat. And then what happens when they was conquering, they was united. When they was moving forward, they was united.
Right.
But when they got wealthy and live off the spoils, then when a person get wealthy and rich, that's what I'm talking about, satisfied, then that's why it's so important to be able to thank the Creator at the end of a meal, at the end of any great thing, simply because once you have what you want, then you don't think about nobody else. You become more individual because I'm doing well. The guy over there should be doing well. So-and-so should be doing well. And I'm happy with my wealth that I'm doing. When civilizations get to that point, not worrying about the next individual, not considering the next individual, then they start their decline. And that's what every civilization, whether it was the Assyrians, the Egyptians rather, the Syrians, whether when you talk about the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the different Byzantine eras, they reach a zenith. And when they reach a zenith, then they become individuals. And that's why any country that have law, statutes, and judgments, they look to our book for them to be able to sustain themselves, because that's the sustaining power. And what happens is we don't need more laws throughout a society. We need more God-fearing people within a society. So now when we look at a place like China, when they went through the communist change and everything like that, become a power,
Right.
they realized then that they was behind everybody. Why? When they was ahead of Europe during the 15th century.
Right.
So how did it fall behind? They got too powerful, become complacent, start being individual. And they wasn't thinking much. And when you take the Creator out of your society.
Right.
So any nation that takes the Creator out of society, they tend to go downward. Always happen. The reason we live so well is because of our faith base. And we know that these laws, statutes, and judgments, is what will sustain us. We know that there's a Creator that sustains us. And that's why one of the things that the world learned from us is that you got to have laws, statutes, and judgments, but you most of all got to have a God sense, believe in a higher power over yourself. Because if you that's what you call, they say Rome fell because of immoderate greatness, because they thought it was just about them. Every empire fall because of immoderate greatness, because it'd be about them. Israel fall, that's why we caution so much, beware lest you forget. Why Moses saying this 3,300 years ago, and yet everybody think they could work around it. Because 3,300 years have been empires up and down for 3,300 years. So that should be the lesson, that the takeaway from Eiquev is not just the law, statutes, and judgments. That is, but it's about remembering the Creator even in your great times, not just in your bad times, but in your great times. I'm just gonna go just maybe one more little pursuit. Let's go to, let me see, 11:12.
Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 12.
Yes. Did I do that already?
No.
Okay.
Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 12. A land which Yehudah thy God careth for, the eyes of Yehudah thy God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even unto the end of the year.
Keep going on.
And it shall come to pass, if ye shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love Yehovah your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul.
Okay, hold it right there. I just want to back up just one on the 12th verse. You notice it says in the last part of the 12th verse, well, the eyes of the Creator, thy God, are always upon it from the
Right.
beginning of the year even to the end of the year. Well, in English it says the end of the year. In Hebrew, it just says years in.
The year shine, all right.
All right. So and that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
point I like. I mean,
I
I
can read.
like to bring up. So if when it why would it say, Akarim Shina, whereas in the first part it says Hashana,
Right.
Mereshit Hashana, right? From the beginning, from the first of the year. But when it gets down to the end, it says until Akarit Shana, after year's end. Only the Creator knows when the year ends. Only He knows the ending of a year.
Right.
But in the English, they just said the year's end. But the Creator, his eyes is on there, and when his eyes gonna come off? When He decided to take it off. That's an important point to remember. That we can't tell when the end of a year is when the Creator's gonna stop watching the land. So if it's continuing in that sense, then that means that right then and there that He's always watching the land. If He's watching the land, He's watching us. All right, the next little verse of that, next few verses, that should wrap it up for tonight. Let me see.
And it shall come to pass that I shall hearken.
14.
14. That I will give the rain of your land in its season, the former rain and the latter rain, that thou mayest gather in thy corn and thy wine and thine oil. And I will give grass in thy fields for thy cattle, and thou shalt eat and be satisfied.
Hold right there. All right. Now, the word they use for rain here is matar. That's the actual word for it. It's a matar here, well, as part of construction. But the word matar. As another word that most people know for rain is geshen. So, what's the difference between geshen and matar? Now, we consider them both rain, but there's no two words in any language that means the exact same thing. So now, we had geshen at the flood. So now that's good rain or bad rain. When we look at it, it said when the flood happened in Noah's time, and it said, the windows of heaven open up and the geshen come down. Sometimes you might hear certain teachers say, well, the Creator never creates new rain. You got water, what He have is the water that's down on the earth. Comes up and it get hot, it vaporizes. And through the process of condensation, it comes back down again. So it's like recycling. Water from down here, get hot enough, turns to a vapor, goes up, and then come back down as rain. Well, that type of rain we call geshen. When the Creator said He's going to send rain, that's something that haven't never been used before. That's matar. That's why it says within its season, not out of season. So now, that's the unique difference between the word matar, which is mem tar resh, and mem tate resh. Mem tate resh. That's the word matar, as opposed to geshem, which is gimel shem mem. So now you know that when you have rain that's evaporated, it's almost like this is an analogy that some people use. is like a stranger impregnating your wife. That's the analogy used because it's recycled, been mixed, turned over. But when it's rain, that's my tar that comes down and water the land, then it's like the owner, the husband, the rightful individual is impregnating the earth. So that's the difference when I'm talking about the Creator's eyes upon yearly and year round, and that it will get its rain in its due season. Rain out of season is never good.
Never good. That's right.
You know, so when you get rain in the proper season, then it's good. In the right amount, then it's good. So those are some of the lessons. But the main lessons that you take away from Eiquev is that it's about your laws, statutes, and judgments. That you ask from one end of the earth to another end of the earth, and then also that within these two particular Sidroths is that it's constantly brought up. Ask from one end of the earth, another end of the earth. Had there ever been a people who heard the voice of God and lived? That means that not only God spoke to Moshe mouth to mouth, but he spoke to 3-point-something million people at the foot of Mount Sinai, mouth to mouth, clear. And also when you when you read, and I implore everybody to read over when they get some time, with Econon and Eiquev, is that when it said that within this, between those two Sidroths, it said God had the Lord had instructed us. So now we refuse to have the best teacher around. Most people would say, I got a chance to go to Oxford. I got a chance to go to Yale. I got a chance to go to Harvard. Oh, I'm going to community college. So we had the opportunity to have the best teacher. But it said, Moshe just said, your chiefs and your elders said, okay, we can't handle the Creator speaking to us directly. We ain't gonna live. You go head on. And talk to God, because there's too much fire up on the mountain. So we ourselves, are fortunate more than we believe, and care to believe, and also what we value. A lot of times when we market, and we always, and this is what I like to share as we leave, because this particular portion talks about, your law, statute, and judgment. Other nations here, they're gonna say, surely this is wise and understanding people. Is that we don't market the Creator. One of the things is that to win friends and influence people to a better way of life and a better lifestyle means that you directed them to go somewhere other than where you at. Now you going towards the same direction, but if you influence them to a better way of life and better lifestyle, that means your walk is not over.
Right.
Your walk is still continual.
Right.
It's not going to a particular camp. And we're not trying to market the Creator. We're marketing the law, where it's godly. That's our merchandise that we bring it. Torah is the merchandise we bring. And what Torah entails, it don't show you who God is in Torah.
Right.
It show you how man should behave before God in Torah. So therefore, you're learning how to walk and follow Torah instructions, to be godly. So you're learning about laws, learning about ordinances, learning about statutes. All it takes to become a holy people. Not that you're marketing the Creator. That's what you're not presenting. Every man and every woman got to find the Creator for themselves. But you can help facilitate them on their journey by sharing laws that can uplift them as a human being. Because if you uplift an individual as a human being, then you also have a chance of him or that individual coming to the Creator. And I'm gonna share one last thing with you. One last thought. After Nebuchadnezzar said several times that he knew that the God, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Ananias, Azariah, Mishael, is the God of all gods. But it didn't say he served him. With Daniel, when Daniel told him about that statue and everything like that, he still was vain. And he had to act as an animal for 7 years. He was quiet after that last episode. But the thing was, did he ever serve the Creator? See, so sometimes a person can acknowledge your God, but not necessarily serve him. That's why when we're looking at the latter days, it says, all nations will come up to the house of the Lord during the time of Sukkot, yearly, and worship the Lord there. Do they continue? I don't know. You know, I mean, as far as worship him on an everyday basis. But it's saying those that don't come up, they will have no rain. And in Egypt, you know what I mean, they will have the drought, they have the famine. So with that, I hope you got out something out what I said. I know I went a little, you know, spot here, spot there, trying to combine both of these Sidroths. I'm going to highlight some things probably from one of these Sidroths next week. I forgot to bring this out. I know I was going to get something. What it is to hear when we're talking about Shema, that's what I'm going to focus on. Now, you know, we have 5 senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, taste, feel. All right. But the book here, when Moshe speaks on first for us, is about hearing, and more laws about hearing. And why, you know, though most of the stuff we learn, and I didn't want to go too far into it because next week's Sidra is Re'eh, but most of the stuff we learn is from seeing. But the stuff that we really digest and start to act upon is what we hear. Because you can see a lot of stuff from a distance far further than you could touch. But and you know, but you cannot, you know, that may not influence you. When Moshe, the Creator, told him to go up on the mountain in this particular Sidra, you know what I mean, and you know, and be able to see the land on that particular mountain. You know, look west, look east, north, south, and you know, and see the whole land. So he's able to, but Moses was on such a level that seeing alone was where he could gravitate and understand the beauty of the land if with the laws applied to it. And that's why the Creator said, let that suffice. That's how you know that he wanted to put action to creeds. Instead of just having creeds with no deeds, he was trying to put action to creeds. Because in this Sidra, he was told to look and look over the whole land. You know, so now for us, that's not enough. We see things. We saw, well, just a little bit of, you know, we saw the thunder and the lightning, but yet we didn't really act on it in the manner we should act. That's why, and that's why it's focused on. You only heard a voice. You saw no manner of similitude. So talking about the Creator. So hearing is one of your most strongest aspects. A guy that is deaf have a worse time in life than a person that is blind. So with that, I hope you got some of what I said, and any mistakes been my own. And any questions you could direct to me, you know, indirectly or directly.
All right.
That, for this time.
Nasik, I have a question.
Yes.
In verse 14 of Deuteronomy chapter 11, it says that I will
Verse
give the
15?
rain of your land in its season, the former rain and the latter rain, that thou mayest gather in thy corn, thy wine, and thy oil. I'm concentrating on corn. Maize was not indigenous to to the Holy Land during that time. So are they talking about, they're speaking about barley there, right?
Well, barley and wheat, we know that about
Barley
Moses
and wheat.
in ancient world, right? Because we
Right.
read from the book of Ruth that they was in the barley harvest, and they reached into the when we got towards the end of the book of Ruth, it's in the wheat harvest.
The wheat harvest. Okay, so that's
Right.
what it's
And
speaking
that's
about.
why they normally read that during Shavuot.
Do a Shavuot. Right. Okay. Thank you. And the next question online, someone asked a question. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 7 to 9. Is it poetic or symbolic, being that Moshe is speaking not Yah? So is it poetic or symbolic, being that Moshe is speaking and not Yah?
Wait.
Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 7 through 9.
Okay, let's get there. Let me just get there to make sure I get them as best I can do. But all right, verse 9.
Chapter 8, 7 through 9.
All right.
It
The Lord thy
reads,
God bringeth thee into a good land, and land of brooks, of waters, of fountains and depths, bringing forth in valleys and hills, and land of wheat and barley, and vines and fig trees, and a land. Oh, okay. Now the question was, is that they speaking poetically? No, those are actual products there in the land of Israel.
Right.
And so it's not poetically. These are the actual main things, like Mount Olives. Anybody that ever been to the Holy Land know olives grow. That's cheap. I mean that it's cheap in the land of Israel. It's almost like you go to certain it's like some lots in New York City still have apple trees in the city, not just counting the ones that's be upstate. In the city, some people still have pear trees in their backyard. In the city, small grapes. So olive trees, those fruits and pomegranates was very plentiful in the land of Israel. So it's not poetic; it's the actual
it's literal. It's literal.
Not only literal, because those are the things we had to bring up and offer.
Okay.
As well.
That's it with the questions. There weren't any other questions.
Well, that's what's good about Friday before Shabbat.
So,
whatever it is, they can always get back to you, and then you can always bring it up, jot it down and bring it up.
Absolutely. So Nasik, thank you once again for your time and the patience and for teaching God's people. We'll see you again, Yah willing, next week. Okay. And you could go to the Uzziah Lewy channel, where we will be showing part 2 to Rosh Zebekiah Ben Levi's interview. That should be coming on at about 8:45 p.m. Eastern time. And tomorrow morning, please tune in to us on the D.C.B. channel at 11 a.m. Eastern time, where we will be going through the usual service for the Shabbat day. Once again, thank you, Nasik, for your time and your patience. May the Most High God bless you.
All right, Shalom.
Shalom.